This is Democracy Watch. Marc, early voting is underway in Ohio, but there's an initiative on the ballot that may be one of the most important initiatives in the entire country. Can you speak on what Ohio voters have the opportunity to vote on this November?
Yeah, so this is, as you say, a blockbuster initiative in a year of blockbuster voter initiatives. You've got abortion initiatives all over the country, and those are super important. But this one in Ohio is just as important. It would finally end the scourge of right-wing Republican partisan gerrymandering in the state of Ohio. This is one of the worst gerrymandered states in the country. You have seen Republican state officials abuse their positions of trust in disregarding a prior effort to curb their partisan gerrymandering, and they are running scared. They are doing everything they can to prevent this from passing. So if you're a voter in Ohio, make sure you understand this initiative and you vote yes to do away with these Republican efforts to continue to gerrymander in that state.
Marc, color me a cynic, but if this initiative passes, who's going to be there to ensure that it's properly executed? Like, Republicans control every office and every branch of government statewide in Ohio, so who's actually going to be there, again, to make sure that this is executed properly?
Right, and we have seen those branches, those Republican branches fail us, right? There was a law in place to prevent this. And in fact, my law firm sued the maps that were passed by the state of Ohio that violated their existing ban on partisan gerrymandering. And several times we won. We won before a conservative majority Republican state Supreme Court. And yet we saw the governor, the secretary of state, the other officials, Republican officials in the state simply, sort of thumb their nose at the court. So this is another effort to strengthen those provisions, to make it harder through a new mechanism for Republicans to pull this off. But I hear you. It's one of the reasons why we also need people to elect a better state Supreme Court in Ohio. And there is at least one of those seats on the ballot, and make sure you educate yourself for that race as well.
The legislature literally tried to remove judges who dared correctly interpret the abortion rights amendment that just passed this past year in Ohio. So if they're all hostile to this, then what's the likelihood that the legislature will also try to be hostile if this initiative passes?
Look, I think that if this initiative passes and if the courts faithfully execute it, which is also something we will likely be talking about in the post-election with the abortion initiatives, right? Like, what do the state courts do? The state courts take an amendment that says, that there are abortion rights to mean that there are not abortion rights, right? The same concern here is what do the courts do with this? But if the courts faithfully apply this, then this is game, set, or match. This will allow members of the public to apply to be part of this commission. It will be a panel of 4 retired Ohio judges, and 2 Democrats, 2 of whom are Democrats and 2 of whom are Republicans, would select those Ohioans who are part of it, and they would get to draw these maps. So, I don't want to view things through rose-colored glasses. I am well aware of everything that Republicans could do to try to frustrate this, but this is the next effort to save Ohioans from the clutches of extreme partisan gerrymandering, and let's hope that it prevails.
If there was hostility to the faithful execution of this initiative in the event that hopefully it does pass, what remedy is there if the Ohio Supreme Court, for example, refuses to properly interpret the law? Is this something where the federal government could step in if the state government is kind of thumbing its nose at a law that was properly passed?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, the truth is that this would be a matter of the state constitution and its interpretation. It is unlikely there would be a federal court claim here. This would go through the Ohio courts. But I don't want people to give up. This is where we can't let the cynics win, right?
Yeah.
Republicans want you to think, well, it's not going to matter anyway because it won't be enforced. If you are a voter out there in Ohio, and you are concerned about your government, you need to vote for this. There are millions of people out there, people, just ordinary citizens, people like, Hannah and James, who just, want to make sure that they have a representative government. People like a Sophie and a Blake, they want to make sure they have a representative government. We need to make sure that they all turn out. So if you are Sophie, you are Blake, you are Hannah, or you are James, make sure you vote for this initiative, along with voting for Sherrod Brown and voting for Kamala Harris and the other things on the ballot in Ohio.
And by the way, we have other examples that we can point to where this stuff actually did work and states have come back from the brink of extreme gerrymanders. I mean, can you explain, for example, what we can look at using Michigan as an example here?
Or Wisconsin, right? Michigan,
right.
Wisconsin, both states that overcame extreme partisan gerrymandering due either to the ballot initiative process or a change in the composition of the state Supreme Court. In the case of Wisconsin, it was the state Supreme Court changed. And as a result, it's going to be it's transformative in the states. It's transformative to the vibrancy of democracy. And it's transformative to the policies that come out of those legislatures. Look at Michigan. Look at how much that Democrats have been able to improve the life of Michiganders as a result of being in power. Look at how much opportunity there is now in Michigan, in Wisconsin, for voters for the first time in a really long time to be able to vote in fair districts and elect a legislature that looks like them. Look at what happened in Minnesota when Democrats had fair maps there and were able to vote for legislature and took control the legislature there under Governor Walz and really improve the life of Minnesotans. So don't give up on this. Don't let the cynics win. Okay, don't let the Republicans convince you it doesn't matter. It does. So if you're in Ohio, vote for this initiative.
Marc, are other states in the country going to be looking at what's happening in Ohio and going to be able to possibly use this as a model for themselves moving forward? I mean, I'm thinking of North Carolina, although I know that North Carolina doesn't have the same initiative process that Ohio does. But are there any other states that would be able to avail themselves of this in the event that it works in Ohio?
Look, I think this is one of the places where, frankly, Republicans have been much smarter than Democrats. You know, Republicans understand that that not only are the states laboratories of democracy vis-a-vis the federal government, but they are also laboratories of democracy relative to each other. So Republicans come up with a terrible bill. They pass it in one state, and then they shop it to other states, right? They take the worst ideas from each state and then model them into other states. And there is a lot that Democratic legislatures can learn by looking at the successes that other states have. You know, there are other states that have enacted laws to protect voting rights that, frankly, blue states could learn from. You know, I'd love New York to take a lesson from some of these other states around voting rights. There are states that have dealt with the scourge of redistricting abuse that can learn from other states. And so, you know, I encourage more of that. Now, there's a lot of dark money on the Republican side behind some groups that do this that doesn't exist on the Democratic side. But that's not a reason why we can't hope that after 2024, with Kamala Harris in the White House, with hopefully a Democratic House and Democratic Senate, but also Democratic-controlled legislatures around the country, that there can't be more cross-pollination of good ideas, state to federal, state to state, to improve the lives of citizens and democracy across the country.
And finally, let's finish off with this, a nice clippable moment here. What is your message to the voters of Ohio in light of the opportunity that they have in front of them?
Look, you have a chance to transform your democracy. You have a chance to send a message that will ring out across this country. You need to vote for Kamala Harris for president. You need to make sure that Sherrod Brown goes back to the United States Senate and holds a Democratic majority. You need to elect Democrats to the House of Representatives, no matter what the maps are. You need to vote because surprises happen when people vote. And you need to vote down ballot for your state Supreme Court, for your state legislators, for your mayors and your city councils. And when it comes to the ballot initiatives, please vote for the pro-democracy ballot initiative, starting with the ballot initiative that will reform the way redistricting is done in your state. And if you do all of those things, you will help improve democracy in the Buckeye State. You'll help improve our Congress, our Senate. You'll help improve the mood of national Democrats around the country. And you will be a shining example of what can be the future of a more democratic and a fairer and freer electoral system around the nation.
Perfectly put. And of course, for those watching right now, to support the work that Marc and his team are doing, which is happening in the courts, ground zero for all of these fights against democracy, a small step we can all take is to sign up for Democracy Docket. It's the news outlet Marc founded to focus on everything voting elections. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.